thank you for being with us. We need you, Lord. We need you so that we will be able to understand your word and to do what's right. Not what we think, because it's not about us. It's about our children. It's about our administrators. It's about our teachers. And it's about our parents. Oh, Heavenly Father, just be with us, even if we can talk to them to have the children to do the right thing. But, oh, Heavenly Father, we come today because you let us live this long. You let us live today. You let us see today. So, Heavenly Father, just be with us as we go through this meeting. Keep everybody calm. Everybody has an opinion, and everybody loves everybody. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Let's policy discussion. First, I gotta get my glasses on. Hold on a minute.
The pledge.
Okay. Okay, policy discussion is JFB, and that's school choice.
Yes,
And-
ma'am. Madam Chair, this was spoken about at our last board meeting, and it was voted on to table, so I'm just bringing it back so that it will be presented next week at the board meeting. But I'm bringing forth the same policy that we have. There's no changes or revisions from what was presented. So the changes from the original policy have been struck through in the red, and then I added the administrative rule to explain the procedures of what we currently do. So
Would you
that,
mind reading that one? I
Sure,
don't have
I'll
that
be
in
glad
front of
to.
me. Yeah.
so it says, Southwood Academy of the Arts is an arts magnet school, and enrollment in the school is subject to the below process. Rising sixth graders must audition. After all spots are filled, students will be placed on a wait list based on audition score. For spots that open up due to attrition, students on the wait list will be contacted to fill available spots. The wait lists carry over into 7th and 8th grade. If by February 15th of each year there are open slots available at any grade level, eligible students from Robert Anderson Middle School may apply via the Cluster Choice Program for admittance. So this is currently the procedures that we use for the policy, but what is brought to you is to withdraw the enrollment into Southwood from Robert Anderson, because that's what was asked. So that is what's presented here just for discussion.
So we're not gonna give kids Robert Anderson a choice.
That is
That's
what
what
that
the
is.
other thing is, but in my opinion on that, we are here for children. And I understand that at Southwood, we have no discipline problems, everything goes fine, and that's the way we're gonna keep it. Everything is gonna go fine. But if a child at Robert Anderson, if a teacher sees that that child has advanced and that child can do whatever the things for Robert Anderson, for Southwood of the arts, and that child has some type of art in them, let them go. If they show out, if something happens, or they don't abide by the rules here, send them back. But for right now, give them a choice, because we don't know what these children can do. Just don't peg them down because, I'll say, just because they go to Robert Anderson and they have this stigma about this and that. Let's don't do that. That makes the child feel like, nobody cares about me. And we say that that's what we're here for, to care for the children and the things that's going on in this district. That's my opinion.
Right. Well, the thing is, they do have a choice because they can audition. And really, it should be based on merit. But on this, where you sent about the students that did come over, so were they 3 from the cluster choice?
I'll let Mr.
Didn't all, the whole list was exhausted, is that?
Yes,
what
yes.
they
So
did?
what happens is Mr. Galloway checks with Mr. Lockus before we open up, before we finalize cluster choice and do the lottery process. He always checks with Mr. Lockus about the open slots there at Southwood. And then if he has not filled those by those on the waiting list per the auditions, then those slots are given to our cluster choice students.
Right. It just seemed like there would be about 350 children after the 500,
Mr. Galloway talks with Mr. Lockus, he goes down through the waiting list, so the procedures that we included, those are the procedures, and you're right, there could be 350 that have made choices to stay at their normal middle school and they don't want to choose now, but I do know that Mr. Lockus goes through that list.
Do you know if the 3 that got sent back to Rams, was it behavior?
I'm not sure, there's all different kinds of parameters within our cluster choice parent agreement, and then we could talk about that.
And that's true at all the cluster choice schools.
Yes,
If they
sir.
don't obey by the rules, they go
Yes,
back to their
sir.
home school.
Yes, sir.
So it's not just that
It's
single
attendance
school.
and grades and behaviors that they look at.
And remind us why Glenview and McCants aren't a part of the cluster choice on that third bullet.
We did cluster choices per the T.L. Hanna side and West Side side due to the high school limitation. Because T.L. Hanna
Ah.
is full, and so we were trying to ensure that we had space for children as they moved about, going up to the high schools. Now, that is something that the board can always look at and revisit, but that was the original reason why that was determined that way.
And cluster was the West Side cluster, the T.L. Hanna cluster, those schools going to each.
But it starts in the elementary school, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if they choose to go, and some was picked to go, but they didn't choose to go. So if they don't choose to go, then you got an opening there.
That's correct.
Is there any, this more discussion?
I have a separate question about, if you could draw your attention to, on this policy, JFB, the last bullet before what's being proposed being striked out, where it starts, once the student is enrolled in a school of choice, this enrollment may continue until the student advances to the next school level. And then it gives an example. It says with students in if a student is enrolled as a choice student in first grade, the enrollment will continue through fifth grade if desired. And then it says enrollment in a middle school of choice is not guaranteed. So, I guess I'm trying to understand, so it's guaranteed at the elementary level, but not the middle.
Well, once you start in that school, so cluster choice would start in kindergarten. So you're guaranteed to stay at that cluster choice school until fifth grade, so you would finish the whole section. On the Hanna side of town, there are some elementary schools that are zoned for Glenview, and there are some elementary schools that are zoned for McCants.
Okay.
So if you choose a cluster choice school that is, the middle school is zoned differently than your residence, you're not guaranteed to go to the middle school that's zoned for your cluster choice school. Now, you can enter into the cluster choice portal again for sixth grade, and you could go through that process if there are openings, but you're not guaranteed that.
Once you're there, once you're in the school, you're guaranteed to stay.
Until the end of that time, so
Till-
kindergarten through fifth, sixth through eighth.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any more discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The policy states that students that go to Southwood would audition in sixth grade. Okay, so now, if there are openings in seventh grade and eighth grade, how do those kids fill those slots?
How does this
Audition,
fill the slots for seventh and eighth?
seventh and eighth.
So what they'll do is they'll go down the waiting list of the sixth graders that didn't get in. And then if there are any interested, for example, we had a family that wanted to move in, and families that are moving into the district, they can audition as well, and then they're placed on that waiting list per their audition score.
Good.
Yes, sir.
But once you, in the sixth grade, when you go there, you stay sixth, seventh, and eighth grade.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
when the eighth grade move out, then that means that they have other people that they can have in there.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm correct, you had a lot of them going sixth grade, not coming in for seventh and eighth.
That's always what happens, because they typically, those who stay, they're great, they're committed, they're in it, but then sometimes kids just miss their friends. Some of their friends are staying back at their home middle schools, and so they go back to their home middle schools.
And can they not take a few extra because of that reason every year, like a couple extra, instead of the 150, take
They do, they tend to, especially the sixth grade year, they tend to accept like 153, 155, because naturally somebody will say, yes, I'm excited. And then we get to August 6th or August 7th, they're like, I've decided to stay at my middle school. So they do that in preparing of that, but there's always that list too that they can go back to.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Do we need to, do I need to put this in a motion, or are we waiting to do this next
And
week?
it's just discussion.
Just discussion
Yes,
tonight, okay, good. All right, put that before, and we'll discuss it again, just discussing. Okay, here we go with May 13th, consent of the agenda draft, April 22nd.
Oh, excuse me, Madam Chairman, do we need to add this back in if we want it to stay in tonight, or
Add it back in.
whatever we struck out?
So there
Yes,
was a motion to table it. So it still comes as a first reading, is my understanding, as is, because it was tabled. And so then at the meeting next week, you would either accept that revision or you would not accept that revision.
Because we
That's my
only
understanding.
discussing it tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
And what we'll be accepting is not to give Robert Anderson kids an extra chance.
If you accept it as it is presented
I
to you.
want it in clear English so everybody can understand
Yes,
where this
yes,
is
sir.
coming from
If
and
you
what we're doing.
accept it as it is presented tonight, Robert Anderson would not be a part of cluster choice.
Thank
Or
you.
we could add McCants and Glenview to it,
You could.
and leave Rams on there, just make it fair for all middle schools.
But
Well,
they
if
already
you-
have a choice at
But
Rand.
they already had a
Glenview,
choice at the
McKenzie.
others.
Robert Anderson doesn't have another choice.
To go to Southwood?
Robert Anderson, Glenview or McCants, they have that
Oh, I
choice.
see what you're saying.
In other words, Robert Anderson has no other choice.
Or we could go district-wide. District-wide choice instead of cluster choice.
Just for that school?
We've done it in the past, where you can go anywhere you want, as long as there's space available. And each school had a lottery. It was back when we had themes, you remember that?
But I think then what you're gonna run into is people
Sports.
wanna stay in sports and all that. I think better leave well enough alone.
Yeah, because eligibility starts
I
in middle
mean,
school.
it's why we did cluster choice instead, but it is an option.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, let me get something straight, because see, we get to start discussing, and then we put something else in it and something else in it. Now, my understanding was this right here, Southwood Academy, with these three things. That's what I wanted to say. And then the other one was the one that you read. Wanted to know why that was read. So, now we're taking other things and putting, why don't we say this, why don't we say that?
No, I didn't suggest any changes. I was just saying what the option was.
Same here.
But, I'm for voting on it straight up and down like it's gonna be presented, so.
I like the district-wide choice, that sounds,
It just wouldn't include Hannah. If you do district-wide, well, it could. I mean, you could say children that live on the west side of town could go to Hannah if there's space available.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. That's district-wide. That's just right now, TL Hannah's at capacity. I mean, it is.
But right now, we have a proposed motion,
Correct.
and we'll vote it up or down.
As it relates to choice, cluster choice, school choice, whatever, who provides transportation? If a person chooses to go other than the school that they're zoned for, parents have to provide transportation.
Yes, sir.
Now, how would this affect eligibility if there's some other changes as it relates to our sports, middle school, so forth?
That we would have to look into, because it could. That recently just changed where they have one forgiveness where they can change schools one time, but then we'd have to really look at that and help parents to understand that. Because there are limitations to how many times you can move within a district.
There's no transfer portal in the high school.
No.
As, while we're talking about that, has anyone heard the latest on what they decided with the high school league? Is that,
I
Still
think they're
current.
leaving it as is.
Still in,
I heard it was,
Postponed it for
But
another
they-
year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what.
okay, thank but it does have momentum, is that correct? Yeah.
Awful. Politicians can't do anything right.
Okay, what are we going in with for next, when this come back up, what are we going in with?
We have two choices. We leave things the way they were, or you accept the changes. If you vote affirmative, yes, I accept the changes, that means that Robert Anderson does not have a cluster choice. If you vote to leave things the way they were and not accept the changes, then Robert Anderson will still have the cluster choice of Southwood. So yay, I want to change it and cut Robert Anderson out of choice. No, I don't want to change it, and Robert Anderson still has a choice. So that if you vote yay, you're voting to cut Robert Anderson out of the choice. If you vote no, you're voting to keep Robert Anderson with the choice of going to Southwood as a cluster choice.
And the way it is now, I mean, the choice, the cluster choice is still secondary to auditions, correct?
For Southwood,
Right.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
And the waiting list, the middle bullet, has to be exhausted, is that correct?
Yes.
We run out of people.
Yes.
That's right.
So that's really third tier. Cluster choice is third tier.
Okay. So now can I go on with number 5,
Yes,
Four.
Four.
number 4?
No, don't skip that one.
Okay, budget discussion A, FY 2025, 2026, budget.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'm gonna ask Ms. Hurd to come forward. I have done what you have asked us to do. We have balanced a budget. We are presenting you a balanced budget tonight. We've taken into consideration the conversations and discussions we've held here together at numerous meetings, and we've also looked at the needs of the district. So I think you'll be pleased. We've incorporated a lot, met the needs of our kids, and the budget is balanced. So I will let Ms. Hurd begin.
Dr. Kelly, Madam Chairs, members of the board. First off, I know I was able to say this to some of you in the back, but sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank y'all for the opportunity to move this meeting from Thursday night to tonight. Thursday night is Teal Hanlon's senior night, and we have received an invitation that Blake would get an award. So I do thank you for switching to allow me to be there with them. That means a lot to me, so thank you for that. So the budget, we've talked about this from the whole process, where we are right now. The Senate has concluded the budget, they're going to conference committee, and then the governor will veto or ratify the budget. And again, we probably will not know the final outcome till closer to the end of June. But there is some good news. So there's 3 legislative work days remaining this year in the legislative session. They will end at 5 o'clock on Thursday. I believe I read that they don't have anything Thursday. That may not be accurate, but I think I read where they're gonna try to get everything done tomorrow and Wednesday. I know they worked and pushed a lot of bills through, last week, in one of the houses, and it may be going over, one of the bodies, it may be going over between houses. And, this is the first of a 2-year legislative session. So anything that doesn't get all the way through will probably will come back up next year. So we do know that the budget will go to conference committee to talk about the differences. The good news for education is that most of the funding for public education, that's where sometimes our budgets can swing. If the House is doing one thing and the Senate's doing something a lot different. From a teacher salary funding, or if they're adding in a major new bill that maybe the other body is not in favor with, sometimes it can have major swings. That's not really the case this year. On most of the items that would have a major impact on our operating budget, they're pretty much in line with. There are some items that the 2 bodies are disagreeing on that they will have to work through that will have impact, but I'm not sure that it's gonna have major impacts on the operating budget that you would see. But we'll obviously keep you updated on what we know about that. So as of today, I did send an email to the state mid-afternoon, and I didn't receive an answer from them before our meeting to say, hey, guys, when will we get our projections from the Senate version of the budget? Because I feel like I've been showing you House Ways and Means since early March, or at least mid-March. And we haven't received anything since then, but I didn't get an answer before tonight, so hopefully we will be seeing that soon. And then I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of two bills, and both of these bills have counterparts in the Senate that could potentially still have an impact on our budget. One is the boat tax bill. That is probably not the official name of that bill. I apologize for not writing the official name of that. That is the Amy short version, so we will not forget to talk about it, bill. But what that does is it combines the boat and the motor into one tax bill, and there's two versions of it. One is a 50% cut in taxes immediately, beginning January 1st. The other one is a reduction in ratio from 10.5 down to 6 over a 3-year. So that reduction would be a 42% reduction, and they would do it over a 3-year period. Those are the two different versions, House and Senate. I do know that the county auditors and probably the treasurers are working the Senate very hard. They like the Senate's version better than the House version of this budget. And the ultimate hope is that this budget doesn't make crossover by May 8th, and they pick it back up next year, and they work with counties and school districts across the state to look at the fiscal impact. Because what the legislators are saying is, yes, we understand this is a major hit. It's got a $60 million fiscal cost to the state by cutting this. So it's big dollars for counties and municipalities and school districts. It's got a big price tag to it. And the legislators are saying you can pass it on in millage. So that if you read the law, I mean, if you read their comments, that is the comments. We understand the impact it's going to make at the county and the school district level, but your boards can get millage. Y'all all have millage, and you can get millage to make it back up. So, I just want you to know that we've communicated, the county's communicating. For Anderson 5, if they do the immediate 50% reduction, is $700,000. Again, everything that we're hearing, I'm working very closely with Mr. Vinca in the county, and they have a pretty good line, direct line. They're working with the Senate. They don't feel like the 50% reduction will happen January 1st, but this is one that we're definitely watching, and that hopefully we'll definitely know something by our board meeting next week. So I did want to just make sure that you were aware of that. The other big one that hasn't fully been passed out is the paid parental leave, going from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. The paid parental leave started a couple years ago for state employees. Is this our first full year for, or second year for teachers or staff, employees, not just teachers? Second year, okay. So it must have started in the state about 3 years ago. The state did it a whole year for their employees before it moved to school districts. Then they came in and added the 6 weeks or 2 weeks for adoptions. Okay, 6 weeks or 2 weeks, depending on if it was a natural birth or an adoption for school districts. And now they're coming in and they're changing the state from 6 weeks of paid leave to 12 weeks of paid leave. And so the school districts have come in and saying, hey, please exclude the school districts from going to 12 weeks of paid leave. I know SCASA has been in that, probably School Boards Association, you probably have been getting the emails on that, but there have been no reprieve from the legislators in pulling out public education. So we do feel like that the staff will receive paid parental leave for 12 weeks if they fit that category. If they're maternal, paternal, or adoption, and whatever their category is, their leave time is going to increase. So the question is, well, Amy, why haven't we seen this in the budget? We have not fully exhausted our budget that we have for paid parental leave right now. So, you know, it's one of those things that we take a guess and back to trending. We use the prior year, but we sure can't.
You can't ask your teacher how many people are going to have babies
Who's
this
going to
year.
have a baby and that good stuff. So we just didn't feel like it was, we felt like that we have enough to at least run through this a year, if this does pass, to see what the trends look like, to see if we need to add additional money. The biggest problem is 12 weeks is a long time if you have a baby right as school starts, that's, you know, a semester and a half. So you may be missing a semester and a half of your certified teacher. We might have a certified teacher in there as a sub, but, you know, some younger kids, that's hard to make that transition, especially if they go out the 1st of September and you had a teacher for 3 or 4 weeks and then you don't see them back till January.
And this, it crosses years.
Yes, so
There's
if
a
you,
delay.
yeah, so if you have that baby May 15th and you only were out 1 week, you can take the next 11.
You gotta be
the next
kidding me.
After the summer, you
After
can
the
take
summer.
11
Oh, my
more.
Yeah, so some of some kids are, you know, 6
Who
and 9
approved
months
this?
old. I'm
Who
sorry.
approved this? State.
The state.
Legislature.
And we elected them? I'm serious, it's asinine,
It's a lot.
it's stupid. And it's being recorded, so I don't
Starts
think
right
it's.
there. Yes, yes, so if this passes,
ridiculous.
everything goes through, and everybody thinks it's going to go through. This is not one that they don't, this is not one, the vote thing, I still don't, I'm just not 100% that I think that one's gonna make it in 3 days, on both sides. But everything I'm hearing, I think the paid parental leave is going to pass through both sides. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Obviously, that impacts our sub rates. That's where our budget would come from, is sub rates. Because the paid parental leave, they don't take their sick leave. So they get to keep their sick leave during that 12-week period. It is just truly us paying them. And then we have subs on top of that, and then they have their sick leave left when they come back to work. So I don't think that that's probably best for children. It's great for our employees. I'm not trying to say that it's a bad thing. It's great for new parents. But for educating children, this takes our teachers out of the classroom for a long time.
Excuse me, Ms. Hurd.
Yes, sir.
What if you have both parents that work in the district?
Ms. Elrod?
They both get it,
Okay.
what they're entitled to. So if, right now, it is 6 weeks for the mother and 2 weeks for the father, and they can take them concurrently, or they can take 6 for mom staying at home, and then dad come home for 2 weeks, and they not have to worry about childcare for 8.
So now if they go to 12 weeks, what will dads get?
4, probably.
4?
Yeah, it's 4 right now.
Could they take their 6 weeks and then take another 6 weeks of sick days, and then dad come in after 12 weeks and take 2?
Yes, sir. And now we do have FMLA, federal guidelines, that, and we have board policy that says, you know, a mother or any employee can only be up to 90 days, and then they have to ask Dr. Kelly anything past 90 days to hold a position. But we have to hold their exact position for their FMLA time.
And FMLA is 12 weeks.
It is 60 days. So it doesn't count weekends, it doesn't count if we're out a holiday.
That's my
It is
question,
60
is
working
business days.
So now, why is it fathers only have 4 weeks? Because now I'm a single father, single parent father, and I did a majority of raising my daughters, okay? So you mean to tell me that I have 4 weeks and that's it, just because I'm a male? Is that correct?
I think it's the recovery time of the birth mother. So for example, if you were an adoptive parent, either way, you could petition to be the primary. So a male could be the primary if the mother had possibly left and abandoned the child, then the father could petition to be that.
So what about the bonding and nurturing portion that the parent would present to that child, regardless of whether the mother is
This
involved or
doesn't
not?
take into account that they could still use their sick time after that up to the 12 weeks or the 60 days. If they wanted to take that, it just would not be paid. And that, Mr. K, I apologize, but that is a state guideline, and it's not something that we're proposing. And I feel like that has been a trend that has come through, what I understand through, human resources, that in private industry, that was a perk, and now it's come over into the public sector.
I'm not too tickled about that.
Now, with an adopted child, you can actually also take it non-concurrent. So, for example, if I need to be out as the primary, mother or father, if I need to be out 2 weeks here, and then I need to go back to court maybe in 3 months, and I need to do another 2 weeks there are options there with adopted children.
So what if I'm adopting a newborn?
If you're a male, it's gonna be 4 weeks, and then you can add your sick days for that FMLA.
And a female adopting a newborn is what?
Would be 12 weeks with this passage.
I thought there was a difference
Even with
between
adoption?
adoption and
Even with
birth.
adoption?
No, they can do, up to with FMLA.
But they're not getting
Not
paid to
paid.
12.
No.
They're not getting paid, if you
Sorry.
didn't birth the baby one way or the
Correct.
other, C-section, natural, then you are considered an
And you
adopted
have to
parent.
qualify for that FMLA. It's based on how much time you worked the year before.
What
We
most,
ask for 1,250 hours.
what a lot of people are doing is taking their sick days first and then going in with FMLA. Right?
They're concurrent. Once those sick days start, the FMLA starts.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
It's very complicated. Everyone is individual based on that doctor's note and when the doctor puts them out. If they go out on, let's say someone has high blood pressure. I had to go out 2 weeks with my first child and be on bed rest. And that starts their FMLA, and it also starts their leave time for sick days, but it doesn't start the 6 weeks for having a baby because they have not birthed the child yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's
Yeah, I can
different
buy
in
that
every
too.
scenario.
I know
It's a
what's
lot.
that.
So, I mean, I know that SCASA and the school districts were very much as vocal as they could be, and just, we didn't get any reprieve on this one. So I just wanted you to be aware of it, because it obviously will have, it has an instructional impact and a financial impact. And obviously, the instructional impact is what's the most important to us, but I wanted you to be aware of it. So that's really, where we are. And so then, as Dr. Kelly mentioned, this is Dr. Kelly's recommended budget that was asked to be presented. And do you, I'm sorry, Dr. Kelly, you may have said this in the beginning. Did you want to tell them the process that you used for this, or did you tell them that in the beginning by looking at?
The parameters?
That you had, looking at everything that we had talked about
Yes,
over? Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry, my mind was probably somewhere else. So, this is not much different than what you've seen the last couple of times. Dr. Kelly's proposal is no millage increase. A lot of these next items here, in fact, everything through here is state dollar increases. So, you know, a lot of times people talk about and say, oh, their budget went up by a lot. This is just money coming from the state. Mandates coming from the state and money that goes along with it. Teacher salaries, health insurance. This is obviously, like we've talked about, an adjustment to the budget to make our budget more accurate from assessments that have increased over the years. And then, the 4K funds moving over here. So, an additional $7 million, and none of that will be taxpayer-based that hit the tax bills. Then on some costs that is mandatory, obviously the health insurance, we originally thought, now this is one thing that could come up in conference committee. The House version says that the 4.6% was on employees. The Senate version said the 4.6 is on the employers. So I'm showing you the employer cost. That could potentially come out. I doubt they're gonna put it on the employees when they've come and said that it's gonna be on the employers. So that, I feel pretty confident that that'll stay on the employer side, but it's a possibility. Workers' comp and property and casualty and crime and security and all our line items for insurance increased by $166,000. Our teacher step is mandated by the state. And then of the two bus driver salary increases, the 2% on the state or 2% on the current scale, chose the 2% on the current scale to get that number. Then moved over to the board request. This is the cost that we will pay for the additional lights in the parking lot at McCants. I think that it was talked about purchasing the lights, and so this is the cost of the additional, the funding that we'll have to have for those lights at McCants. the additional translator position. This is, we have one in the district currently that does most of our translating for different languages. I believe we have about 42 different languages. And so I think Mr. Dukes will tell you, I know she worked for him many years. Our current person is excellent and is worn very thin on all of the items that she has to do for our community and translate. So this would just be an additional person to try to help ease that load. But because it is, we're having to turn things down and pay for services to translate.
That was my question, how's
currently.
one person in a district this size keep up? Okay.
She can't, we're
Okay.
paying services to translate the
Okay.
calls. That's gonna be a hard position to fill.
I was
This-
gonna ask, do we have any prospects? Because I know she runs into people.
Oh, we have somebody.
I have a couple.
Outstanding.
Okay.
Good.
Yes, so you're right, Mr. Dukes. I knew you could speak to that. I mean, she has a skill set that is not something that can be taught. I mean, it's a hard job to be able to work with the families in all of these different schools and languages. And I know that she doesn't know all of the languages and that we still may have to use the translation service for some of the languages that we have. But I do think that the community finds her services very valuable, and I think the schools do as well.
And you said we have how many
We,
languages?
42. Yes, ma'am.
Quite a
It's-
few of them are Oriental languages or Asian languages, I think, different variations of it.
So, and then, moving the part-time staff member at Robert Anderson to full-time. They currently have somebody that works 25 hours a week. And that would just be moving to 37.5 hours a week in the office. And then the 6 secondary interventionist, that would be one for the 4 middle schools and one for each high school there.
Does that number seem a little high? 101,000 a person?
No, we-
Benefits and all.
I thought we always used 70,000 plus
Right.
benefits.
Right here, well, now that that was about the case when we paid about 40,000, but now it's a lot more. So, if you look down here, our masters plus, a masters with 12 years is 101,000. Our retirement's 25% of your salary,
Right.
and now all the salaries have increased fairly significantly
A
as well.
master's in how many years?
I'm sorry,
Master's in how many years?
12.
They could still have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't help them if they have a doctorate.
What was the breakdown again on those 6 interventionists?
It's
there?
100 and-
How many at middle schools? and
I'm sorry.
One at each middle school. We had talked about doing 2 at Robert Anderson because of their size, but they have a very large Title I funding that can purchase the second one. So they would still have 2, but one would come from Title I funds and one would come from general. So each middle school would have 1 interventionist and each high school. And the high school interventionist would be helping with their end-of-course assessments.
We're going Southwood Middle School for these purposes.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, obviously, the board compensation, is in there, if that begins next year.
And what about that? Now, where is that at?
I believe Mr. Duke said that it's going before the state board or somebody in
May
May
15th, he
15th.
said.
May 15th. So we got a little while longer on that one. And then the principal salary changes that you guys have already approved, that's the cost there. The middle school security, this is the equipment and personnel for what you discussed for middle school security. This sick leave payout,
Excuse me.
yes, sir.
Didn't we just, the equipment, can we not pay for that out of sales tax money?
We can.
So why don't we pull it?
We can do that. We can make that and then still have the
Okay.
personnel
Okay. I would suggest pulling that out of sales tax money.
pay that sales tax. Okay, we can,
But would we have to vote on to pay it out of sales tax?
I think that we can make that motion at the next meeting,
Okay.
Yeah.
if you're good with that. Sick leave payout, this is $65 for over 90 days. And Dr. Kelly, reached out to the other superintendents in Anderson County, and I believe all the other 4 are currently paying out over 90 days. It's not a practice that I think it's a practice that was Anderson 5's before my time in 2006, it may have been several years even before that, but since I have been here, this is not something that we've done. I know that a lot of school districts do it, and there's a lot of different ranges in what's paid, and, so we use $65 for that.
Can I jump back? All of that 944 is not equipment.
No, sir.
How
So
much of it
that-
is Angry roughly?
I've got it, I will, if I can look that up while y'all are still doing
What
it.
I'm thinking, I'm just thinking out loud, and I brought this up, and I've gotten several people thanking me for it, is our secretaries and office people, their percentages of raises has not been what everybody else has. I don't understand why. I mean, some are getting, 70% increase in the last few years, and 50% increase, and they've got like 14%. I think even our computer tech people are in that same, so maybe we could use some of that to kind of,
If I'm remembering correctly, I think the equipment is about 400,000,
Okay.
and about 500 is,
like, the material,
Personnel.
okay, and that,
but I do have the
Okay,
breakdown, I've
okay.
got the sheet,
Yep.
just hadn't looked at it in a little while.
I'd like to split that number and get that off of that cell, so changing that calculation.
Yes,
So we'll
okay,
see- So we can see it.
we can do that.
So sick leave payout, y'all looked at the folks with over 90, multiplied it by 65, and came up with 206?
We did, and what we did, and I'm just being very transparent, our current employees didn't know or don't know that the board's discussing this. So we ran this as of the 4/30 payroll. So when that is out there, that employees that don't use their sick leave and have over 90 days may be paid, this number may go up. It's got a little buffer in it because I felt like that was gonna be the case. I have the exact calculation for the exact people as of right now, which this is not a recommendation to give it to the people that have it at the end of June 30th, 2025. It's a recommendation to start it 25, 26, but I had to start somewhere. So I've got the calculation as of the April 30th payroll, who had, sick leave over 90 days. And then, yes, sir, did the calculation as to, and then the associated fringes that go along with that.
And I had asked about that earlier, so I appreciate y'all doing that calculation. I mean, the whole idea is to keep people in the classroom as opposed to give them an incentive to stay in the classroom as opposed to staying home sick if they have something minor or, just don't feel good that day. So come to school, get paid out. But the teaching assistants back up on row 9 is at 0 right now. And my preference, if I had a priority, it would be to put somebody to get assistance to help in the classroom on a daily basis as opposed to $65 that may or may not incentivize somebody to come into work one day. So, Ms. Kelly, Dr. Kelly, I appreciate you putting that there. My preference would be to use that money and some of the savings. And Tommy, I agree with Tommy on some of these other categories of raises. So we'll have some extra money once you split that out, and we'll take a look at it. So just add that.
And then we talked about the employee that is retiring, the savings from the district level there. And then, I believe the board has talked about the next two and can have discussion in the open meeting. And then the $3 increase for assistance pay, this would be taking it to $692,000 to add $3 to the 3 current scales for assistance.
So what does that take them from? Was it $14?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're making what now?
17.
Which
Yes,
is the
ma'am.
second highest. We surveyed 20 districts, and we're the second highest. The only one that beats us is Fort Mill.
So on your screen right there is, what the salary ranges would be. The first column is the annual and the highlighted is hourly. That's the first 2 for high school. The next 2 is a 2-year degree annual and hourly, and then the last 2 is a 4-year degree annual and high school. Annual means 185 work days for 7.5 hours per day. So
Can I
that's,
get just this paper?
I'm sorry?
Can I get just this paper?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Who is Are the teachers are the assistants complaining that they're not getting paid enough?
Yes,
After
Because see,
after 3 years of raises, they're complaining that they're not getting paid.
And the secretaries ain't got anything.
So
well, what they have
I've
to do.
I've asked teachers that I know that work in the district what their opinion is of assistants. And I've got both extremes. I've got the extreme, like, man, there's no way you could pay me to do their job. And then I've got the extreme, like, I don't want an assistant. She's basically, or it's based, that person is my gopher. I need you to go make copies. I don't want them teaching my kids. I want to be handling the kids. They just say,
Oh, good, we can put them somewhere else and give them some, and they don't have to worry about them.
I just don't understand. I mean, I know this has been a topic of conversation for the last 3 years. And we have given them raises the last 3 years, and I think they're up 70%. Is that right?
I think bus drivers.
It would be between a 57 and a 63% increase over 3 years, if you do the three.
The three, so 60 to 63% increase over 3 years. I've had 0% increase in the last 5 years. So I mean,
Just
I'm
tell,
just struggling with it.
I know you're struggling, with it, and probably other people are struggling with it. But I did it. So, I did it for 22 years. And I taught. I went back to school and got a degree. So, what I knew I was doing. And I don't know what they do now. I know what they did in 2021. Because I asked, this child doesn't know this child doesn't know this. What are we gonna do now with this child? It's Christmas. We're not gonna do anything with it. All the children passes. See, I had never worked like that. I had never did that before. So I didn't know that, because when I was there, if you didn't know, and you could see the blossom from September to Christmas, how they would grow. But I didn't see that 2021. And then when I was told that they're gonna pass anyway, oh, no child left behind. I couldn't get that. So my thing was, if you're getting more money for what you do, because I did it all. I taught, I ran off papers, I took them to out school playground. I came back, we had classes, we went to lunch, I helped them open the cartons and help them and whatever else was needed there. But now, see, I don't understand what you're saying was when you had the best one that said, yeah, we did a lot, and I'm glad they're with me. But with the teacher that said that they don't need them in the class with them, that's fine, take them out. Let them go somewhere else and help somebody else. But I know it's a job. If
How
you
about
do
this?
it right, it's a job.
Madam Chair, how
Yes.
about this as a compromise? What if we did the half of that at $1.50, and we took the other $1.50 and hired more assistants
I thought
for
we
the
had
elementary schools?
hadn't we already decided on this one?
I think,
For teaching assistants, no, we took out the teaching assistants because we hired 17 last year, additional teaching assistants. And so we took the money that we were allocating for the additional 25,
Then you
and we
still
did
got
the interventionists at the middle and high school. We did some of
I
that.
wouldn't budge.
So
I wouldn't
this
budge.
budget does not propose any new additional
budge,
teaching
no.
assistants. Because we did 17 last year. We added 17 teaching assistants last year to the elementary schools.
So if you hired me this year for a teaching assistant, what do I make?
This year,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Starting out, I believe it's,
$14.34.
yes, ma'am.
That's 20.
That's with a high school diploma and then 2-year degree. is
That's
$14.50.
$20,000 a year.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 185 days. I just want to make sure it's
Yes,
not, it's 185 days. It's not,
Yeah, you worked every day to teach it, don't you?
yeah.
I can do it.
185, yes.
185.
But the teachers
Teachers work
the teachers are certified. and have a
Teachers are
credentials.
190.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? out of the 17 that we hired last year, do we have the results of having those assistants in the classrooms? I mean, have we seen
We
a
have.
positive?
We have. The main piece that we structured after was one of our Title I schools who we hired additional teaching assistants for that school. And they continuously, even this year, with our preliminary data that we've just gotten in from tests that were completed last week, they continuously make 5 to 7% gains every year. So if they're used correctly and they're used
That's-
intentionally,
That's the key.
you definitely can. But because we added 17 last year and did not add anything to middle and high last year to help with children who might be performing below grade level, that's why I thought the focus this year should be on middle and high. That's why.
Well,
Okay.
And I don't
And
disagree.
I,
I'm sorry,
and I
go ahead.
agree with that because there's kids that leave elementary and go to middle and don't get any help.
Right.
And then
Right.
they're just stuck in the class, and then you have to pull them
That's
to try to
correct.
help them. So I agree that we need them in the middle and high schools.
I mean, that, moving
Those-
middle school above the elementary and that priority, I completely agree with. If we have some money, like with what we're talking about with middle school equipment, that we could get some more elementary assistants, I think that would be great at the title schools. And it'd be great to say we could clone what Verenus is doing. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
Kelly? But cloning is, it's all personality, it's all skill, it's all, I mean, you got different extremes that you just mentioned. A lot of that is the person, the person who's in that classroom.
Sure.
Some want to work at it, and some, you got you got Madam Chair here, she worked at it, you can tell. So,
And let me ask you another thing. Is this the same assistance that works at the elementary school that has, K through 5? And then is this the same ones that have special needs?
Yes, ma'am. Every teaching assistant in the school district, no matter what department you work for, is paid off this salary schedule.
And you mean to tell me you don't want to give nobody no more money that changes a diaper and clean up throw up?
They get a little, they get
They
a
do
little
get a
something, they get a
stipend.
little $500 at the beginning and $500 at the end. But Madam Chair, let me say this. I've worked as a teacher's assistant. Those teacher's assistants that we have that are dedicated, that love their job, come in and do what they're supposed to do, they deserve $17. That's the bottom line. Now, we have some that don't do what they're supposed to do, and we have teachers, that don't do what they're supposed to do. We have administrators that don't do what they're supposed to do, okay? But now, we're gonna go around picking on who does what they're supposed to do, whether or not you get paid. There's gonna be a lot of people not getting money around here. So let me tell you, I think that these people deserve $17 an hour. I'd like to pay them more, especially those that work in special needs, but we just don't have the funds. But now, I don't think we need to penny pinch and give them a little dollar here. These people deserve $17 an hour. Go and sit in the classroom where you have a dedicated teacher assistant. You will see that they do exactly what that teacher does, or they do exactly what that teacher needs done. Because what they're doing is they're freeing up that teacher to deal with the class, those who are keeping pace. You have some that don't keep pace. So they have to get with those and bring them along at a slower pace. Sometimes they have to go and help. When I was in school, we didn't have teacher assistants. But we had teachers that went around and they walked through the classroom up and down the aisles. How you looking on number 1? And they would check your work. And they would go to the next person. You doing okay? How are you looking on number 10? And so on and so forth. They don't do that now. Okay? These teachers, teacher assistants deserve what they're getting. Okay? And they deserve the $17. That's my stance on it. I'll end there to keep from being just redundant, but I think they deserve it.
Okay.
Okay, so then other requested items that are included in the budget is the elementary alternative class at CF Reams that started in January. That is the teacher, the assistant, and the supplies, again, with all benefits. An additional multilingual teacher. Again, there's the master's with a step 12 with benefits. The teacher-pupil ratio savings. We had a digital integration specialist that left the district, and so that position was frozen. The lunch monitor savings is $217,800. the extra security at events, athletic, academic, just different events throughout the district for the year. The mentoring program, we talked about that, we started it this year, and it was funded through a grant. Obviously, we will continue to be looking for additional grants or other funding to ramp up this program or to even fund this if we can get it. But if not, this is what will be needed to continue that program. Then this superintendent's recommendation is to pay the teachers, increase them by $2,000 on each step of their salary schedule. And all other staff, 2% cost of living, which again matches your bus drivers right over here. And then a step increase for non-teachers, so custodians, culinary assistants, principals, administrators, secretaries, everybody would be listed there. There'd be a $4 increase for your HVAC staff members and the supervisor over them. And, you know, just as we were talking about, we gave them a little over $2 increase last year and $4 this year. So that was a little over $6 in the last 2 years to get that pay increased. A utility increase from Duke Energy, maintenance of effort is what we have to give to the special ed department from the general fund. Our contracted increases for entities that we contract with, that's what we've been told that the contract would increase by. And then an additional one that
Can you explain that a little more, contract increases?
yes, sir, that is our SROs.
Can
Our
you put that
counties,
up?
county, city, and that's also got place safe in
Can
it.
you type that in right there by that cell
I
somewhere?
would be glad to.
That'd be good.
Do we negotiate with them every year as it relates to a salary that knows just whatever they throw at us?
And they're not willing to negotiate.
Our
I mean,
sheriff-
I don't
our
mean
sheriff
that
isn't,
ugly.
or-
I just think that they have enough vacancies in their staff that they would like to have the people back. If I'm speaking incorrectly, but, I mean, it used to be $25 an hour, we pay $50 an hour now for any extra security that we have throughout the district. And then when the county gives the sheriff's office raises, we have to pay those, we pay for the captains that oversee our SROs. They know what the community thinks of the SROs, and,
So when it comes to making the signing this contract, who sits at the table with the sheriff and say, okay, we're gonna do that? Is that you, Dr. Kennedy?
They send it to us.
They just send it to you and you just have to go along with it? There's no meeting, no discussion? or
We've
nothing?
talked some back and forth with them, but
With the
typically.
sheriff, is that who?
Mhm.
I like to sit on the next meeting.
and the police chief. It's the city and the county both.
Thank you.
Quick question, backing up just a little bit. Mr. Grant, the $4 for HVAC, that's specific to HVAC? Like you got multi-craft people and all those other categories there? Is that include?
It's specific for HVAC.
How do we look on those other categories in terms of their
So
pay?
I guess that we're in need of higher pay in the HVAC category.
That's the
More
most
so than-
pressing.
More so than any category in the maintenance.
Thanks.
Okay, and then the last item there, Ms. Benninger has reached out and said that the Renaissance Academy needs to do a new HVAC system at their building, and that they will be requesting more money from the 5 school districts that participate with them. And so the request is that Anderson 5 move from paying them $36,000 annually to $56,000 annually for the maintenance on their building.
And is that the same percentage increase with each district?
That is that they know how much money they need, and then they divided it by our ADM. So we have the largest still of number of
Really?
students in the county. So our number of students in the county versus Anderson County, so 40% went to Anderson 5
What's our numbers?
in the in school kids.
Yeah,
I
at
think
the
I have
Renaissance
the-
Academy. I mean, have we jumped back up to that 100 mark, or, you know, are we, I mean, we were at nothing
Yeah.
until this year, right?
Yeah, but we're still double what every other school in the city.
Gosh, even with, wow.
And those
Yeah.
have been expulsions.
Yes.
Some.
Some were, because of the way we set it up and the way we wanted the changes to come with the alternative program and the Renaissance Academy, we didn't want it to wait till a person was expelled and it was their last resort. If we see a person heading down the road and they feel like in a meeting with their family that they could benefit from going to the alternative program, the Renaissance Academy, then they can be placed there. Am I correct?
Some students go to the, not Renaissance Academy, ACE, and then that is even, an environment where they're not being as successful as we had hoped. And so those folks, after mediation with the families and the guardians, then we move them to the Renaissance Academy where they can get a little more, structured environment for that. So it is a combination of expulsion versus we have layers of interventions.
And what's our numbers?
Mr.
I would say
Galloway.
we have less than 20 over there. I can give you a second.
And
I can go get.
And that's double what every other district has?
No, she's looking, they're not looking at Renaissance, they're looking at students in Anderson 5 versus students in Anderson County. Students in Anderson 1 versus students in Anderson County. So they're using that percentage that most everything, the sales tax is divided by, that everything is divided by. That's how she's asking for the additional funding.
And that may have made sense when we didn't have ACE Academy and we were populating the Renaissance Academy 2 or 3 times more than everybody
Right.
else. But to your point, that doesn't seem very fair since we've got ACE Academy holding a lot of kids too.
And we have not seen our first bill yet from Renaissance since we've been back. We do have some questions.
We have a contract.
We do.
So they're amending the contract?
They did this for every district because they said they had contractual things needed to take place at the Renaissance Academy. So every district was asked to look at this.
Asked?
Well, given the email to, this is what we're needing.
I mean, maybe our relationship isn't what we need to, to continue
Well, where we gonna
sending
put,
kids.
where we gonna put them?
Where we put them the last 10 years at ACE Academy.
Oh, I thought we went over there. I thought that was the school district thing until they changed it.
The ACE Academy's ours and then Renaissance
And where's
Academy.
Ace Academy?
It's at what I call the old McDuffie, CF Reeds.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. It's there. Mr. Backus does a wonderful job leading that program.
You know, I always have heard that 90% of the kids, 10% of the kids we're scared of. 90% we're just kind of mad at. So those that we're scared of, we want to put them at ACE Academy. The 90%, at Renaissance, and the 90% we can keep at ACE Academy. But if we're that much more populating than the other districts,
And I don't have those numbers. Mr. Galloway, do you have that?
I'd like to see those numbers on a monthly basis. Can we get those at each of our meetings?
I think this is correct here.
One more thing, let's go back, when you get back to SROs, and you said you were giving them, what is that, 5% or 3%, I think? 5%. Okay.
Thank you for rounding us up, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair.
I just don't understand why, because that they should get that, that's what I'm saying, they should get that, because they're the first responders. That's their
But
life.
they're paid by the sheriff's department and the city police department for us.
And then us.
No, we pay the contract price. We don't pay them.
We write a check to the Anderson
We
County.
write a check to Anderson
or
County
the
or
city of
to the-
Anderson, and they pay the employees.
Yeah.
We don't pay
Yeah,
them.
we don't pay them. They're not our employees.
We pay their we pay everything like they are, but we pay it, so we pay their workers' comp and, their supplies, and we pay everything, but we pay it to Anderson County or the city of Anderson.
And you're gonna pay 3% this year or whatever.
The discussion that we've heard so far said about a 5% increase.
5% on
Yes, ma'am.
that. Okay.
It's probably
So-
not like us, the raises they're giving, just like we are, it's covering that cost.
So our total's like 1.7 million? 1.7 million. And other districts in the state pay nothing for their, because the state funded all of theirs.
Because we were first to do it.
That's, sometimes being proactive costs you a lot of money, doesn't it, for a long time.
In this case, it has cost us a lot.
Ms. Hurd, I have a few questions under those other requests. I think it's the last section we were
Okay.
on.
Yes, sir.
I just want to understand how, so the teacher's salary adjustment, $2,000. Can you just give me an example of, like, take one teacher at one step? I mean, do we take the whole pay scale and raise it $2,000?
Every
Okay.
single,
Every teacher, yes.
every
Yeah.
teacher on
Okay.
that thing, every line item goes up $2,000.
Okay, so, and then they get a step as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my second question would be, we've got to itemize non-teacher step increase.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason we don't have a teacher step
Yes, sir.
increase?
It's over here on the state mandated right here.
Ah, gotcha.
Because the
Gotcha.
state makes
Okay.
us give a teacher step increase. We don't
Gotcha.
have a choice on that one.
And then, can you scroll down a little
Yes,
bit
sir.
under other requests? I may be seeing everything, but let me make sure. What's the reason for the lunch monitors going away again? Because I know.
Yes, sir. Well, it was the instructional one, the principals and the teachers don't like them. So they think they're not as effective as we as hoped because the monitors don't know the children as well. They get to know them, they just don't know them as well. And so what happens is the children get into the lunchroom and they have different set of expectations than what their classroom teacher had with them. And so then they get in trouble just because they're children, and then the teachers have to deal with that when it comes back. So they would just rather sit with their kids at lunch, being all honest. And we initiated that because originally we read the bill, or the law, I should say, that says they had to have an unencumbered 30 minutes of time during the instructional day. We tied that to lunch, but it can be during their contractual day. So now we're going to give that to them at 2:30 to 3, yes, sir, for their contractual time. And so it was twofold. One, the teachers didn't like it because they were having to deal with children who had some mishaps during lunch when they came back and when they weren't there to help and assist. And then two, we can still give them the 30 minutes of unencumbered time.
And I think the way it was explained to me, it's kind of like your teacher's assistants. You had some monitors did a good job,
Did a great job,
and others
yes.
didn't. I
Yes,
mean,
and
it's the
some
same.
didn't, yes.
And I know one concern
Yeah, I
about
heard
me is,
about them.
are they trained for choking kids and things like that? Because I know a lot of them said they watch their kids for little things like that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that, because I got some emails or some texts today about, oh, we lost our lunch. We don't get any lunch, we don't get any encumbered time anymore. And I just want to make sure that the principals are clear that you're getting it at the end of the day, not that you're losing it in its totality, because that's what I was getting complaints about today.
And I think a lot of that was happening during testing because people were having to be used for monitoring and things like that. But I know Ms. Gay has worked with the principals. I've spoken with the principals directly to let them know this is happening next year. But you're right, Mr. Zug, they need to make sure that is communicated, and we'll make sure that as well. So they're getting their 30 minutes of unencumbered time. It just won't be at the lunchtime.
Well, going back to what Mr. Zug just said, I've heard about it with testing. There are some schools, there's modified schedules for related arts and others aren't running a modified schedule. I don't know if you've heard that. In other words, if you have related arts during the time that you're testing your fourth grade teacher, fifth grade teacher, you're testing your kids, your related art was first period, second period, well, that's when you're testing, and then once you finish testing, well, kindergarten first, seconds in the gym and doing all those things, you got no break at all. Because a good principal will run a modified schedule where after testing, everybody gets, the time will be shorter, but everybody gets a little some break. So just make sure that that's consistent.
Mr. Thompson, did you have any other questions?
No, ma'am, I believe you answered the ones I asked.
I want to reach back up here for just a minute, if y'all don't mind.
Excuse me, Ms. Hurd.
Yes,
While
sir.
you're doing that, I did find those numbers, and I do stand corrected. We don't have double the others. District 1 has 24. District 2 has 25. District 3 has 11. District 4 has 6. And District 5, this is our first year back, we have 19. So, those are our numbers. But prior to us going away from it, we were double what everybody else was. And that's how our numbers panned out. And that's how we got the formula. That's what we would pay because we were the bulk of the students over there. And I would venture to say, we're not just being our first year back, it would be that way again. Were it not for Ace Academy, because our kids come from, we have an alternative that supplements that before they get to that point, so.
But it seems like it's a little more even now, and the allocation of debt is not.
And they're basing that on our ADM, which has nothing to do with enrollment in their program. It has to do with enrollment in our district. So that is what they were basing it on for all school districts.
But we have a contract.
But our current contract shows the first amount of money that we pay, the $36,080 is based on that ADM. So she's just changing the amount of what's needed for them. So our contract's threefold. We pay a per pupil per day rate. So that's where Mr. K and Mr. Calloway was saying our numbers. When we were double, that's why we were over $100,000, is because we were paying per pupil per day. That's allocation number one. Number two is many, many moons ago, there was a grant for at-risk students. And when that went away, somehow the alternative school we never got to say, the state stopped funding that, we can't fund that anymore. So they kept up and said, well, you still gotta pay us that. That's $30,000 for every school district. So everybody, no matter their size, pays $30,000 to them. And then the third one was they wanted a portion of our sales tax. Because we cannot control what is being purchased by the Renaissance Academy, we do not give them sales tax. It comes from the general fund. We have the voters that have approved what can be used by sales tax funds. And I personally, and Dr. Kelly, we feel very strongly that I am not willing to let another organization put Anderson 5 in jeopardy of not following what the voters voted on. So we give them the money from the general fund because they do not provide us with receipts on how the money is spent.
Okay.
And I never want it to be that we didn't follow, the Anderson 5 didn't follow the mandate of the voters. So I just want to be very clear about that. We feel very strongly about that. Not all districts feel the way we feel. Some do, some don't.
Ms. Hurd, I think those of us that have been here a while understand our skepticism with the old alternative school, because
Right.
it's just, they walked in here when they wanted hands out for money, and we never got results what was going on. So I guess that's why we said we're a little skeptical about.
Right.
But I think we're under a lot better leadership now than we've
Yeah, I
ever
was
been.
gonna say that, and I wanted to speak to that because I am on that board. With the addition of Mr. McGowan and his knack for being able to relate to our children, being able to find creative and nuanced ways of dealing with problems as opposed to just penalizing and drill instructor type punitive punishment that they levied on the children when they were there before, because he has a different approach. I think that we're in much better shape. We're going to have much better results, and I think everybody's going to be pleased with the money that we're spending over there and the results we're going to get back. Our kids don't have to go there and stay until Simon says. Now they go, and when their behavior has improved, when their work has become I guess acceptable up to where it ought to be, then there's a meeting between the family, the director there, and the school which they left, and they determine when that child is able to matriculate back to their home school. And so that's the good thing about it, because our kids really were just there at the mercy of the director at the time. And that was not a good look, not to mention the fact that there was it was a pretty aggressive boot camp type treatment that was going on, and we wanted to get away from that. And so I think that was the purpose why we started ACE. But I think with Mr. McGowan being there and the new staff that they have in place and the new approach, I think we're much better.
Yeah,
So with all of that new, is there not a way that everything could be divided per pupil per day?
I'm not sure what the formula is going to be, because this is our first year back.
Yeah.
And we do have Mr. McGowan's there, so I know that, and that thing about, I know about them not ever giving us any receipts, and they always came with the handout, and that was the normal, that was normal procedure with them. But now I think things are gonna be a lot more above board, a lot more transparent, and I think we'll have better results.
I just don't wanna fund that, Renaissance Academy for
Right.
4 other districts.
Right, see, what we were
And-
doing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
I
off.
think that what's fair is the per pupil per day, okay? Why couldn't that grant be split per pupil per day? And we just have a set, we know that when we take a kid there, it's per pupil per day. What's hard about it?
this
I
would be
think-
my thought. I mean, I'm just thinking dollars and cents. If somebody's getting so much for extra kids there, they may be a little more reluctant to keep it. Maybe we're trying to keep them there instead of sending them back. If I send this kid back, I'm gonna lose X number of dollars a day. If they've got a budget they can kind of count on to run their academy, I think in the long run, they're more comfortable with the operating budget they've got from us instead of, well, I'm not sending these 10 kids back. That's $10,000 a week or however much.
That may have very well been the thinking that
I think it was.
Mr. Dillingham had.
but if
Now, let
we're-
me say this, with the way that things are structured now, I think that we're in a lot better position. We're not providing everything. We were providing meals, we were doing all the technology, we were doing the transportation, we were doing the maintenance, we were doing the HVAC, we were doing everything then. But we're not doing that now. We fell away from that. And now it's been evenly split as it relates to the maintenance, I think, right?
We do the meals.
We do the
breakfast
meals.
and lunch, yes, sir.
But
And I think we provide maybe a bus or two,
We-
a couple of
we provide
buses.
One bus, yes.
One bus, but it's not anywhere near the burden that it was prior to.
But if we don't do per pupil per day on everything, and we do it on our average attendance in the district, we're funding the other districts. Why can't we just all pay for the amount of kids we send?
Well, why don't we just pay on the average as opposed to
Yeah, the
per
average.
pupil as they're there, then we don't have to get in what Tommy said, just take this year, see what the average is and what that percentage is. We get paid per pupil by the state on the numbers that come, and so the numbers that we send there, let's just get an average base next year on this year and just keep,
Yeah,
keep the average running.
any way to do it is
That's
better than what
That's
we're
a
doing.
fairer way, in my opinion, than using ADM, using 40% when we don't have 40% of the kids there.
But when we went back to them, this is what we accepted to do. We told them that this is what we would do.
This increase is something they've asked. That's not what we
That's what they're
accepted.
asking for now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, is this increase that they're asking for now, does this include what I mentioned in the other meeting? So,
She
because
has
they are
not-
looking
she
to
has not
add,
reached out about that.
they are looking to add an assistant director. And so each district is asked to contribute an equal share toward that director. I don't know what that figure is. They didn't give us that figure, but I do know that they are looking, let me see here. I don't think this is it. They are looking to add an assistant director. But trust me, if what I will do is, I will invite Mr. McGowan to come and speak to us, because I think he can better articulate what his vision is and what his need is and how he's approaching. And I think we'll be pleased after hearing from Mr. McGowan.
But do you think, who else goes there other than District 5?
All five.
All five
Five
districts.
districts.
All 5 districts,
Yes,
so you
ma'am.
think they're asking the same amount for all 5 districts?
I think what the email that we received said that they needed some contractual work done, and they had an amount, I apologize, like $200,000 is what they needed. And it said Anderson 5's portion of the 200,000 will be based on the 40%, it's not exactly 40, it's like 39.7. The percentage of students, and so it's a roughly $20,000 increase. And that's per year, that's not a one-time deal.
I do know they need an entire new HVAC system.
Yeah.
They
We-
do need that.
Yeah, and that's what this is.
Yeah.
But it's not a one-time thing, it's a continual.
We give them sales tax money annually,
Right.
and so that's what that new amount would be, $56,000 a year.
And the increase from 36 to 56, they justified by a new air conditioning system?
Capital projects.
20,000. Yeah.
But not just for 1 year, but for every year forward.
Mr. Bradshaw, to my knowledge, capital projects, I don't know if it's, they're asking for an increase in just whatever we give them toward their total capital projects, but I do know that they needed an HVAC system, and that was the reason for this. Now, as it relates to the numbers and the term of it, I'm sure Ms. Hurd is on point with that, because she's always on point with whatever, I mean, as it relates to numbers, that's her deal. But I mean, I do know that they are in desperate need of an HVAC system, and that was the purpose behind the increase.
I don't object to that. I mean, if they need it, they need it. But you don't need a new one every year.
I agree. I agree.
All right, I'm gonna jump back up to the middle school security, and 944 is what we had listed. That was a, 4-year lease for the equipment. If we purchase the equipment outright, it's the little over $2 million, and then the reoccurring cost that we have to put in for personnel and subscription is $594,000. So the difference between this 944 and what we have to put in that's annually reoccurring would be $349,000. And Mr. Dukes also mentioned looking at the sick leave payout. So if you take the savings by purchasing the equipment, not leasing it, and the sick leave payout, that's $556,000.
You lost me.
Did I lose you? I'm sorry. So $944,000, that included a 4-year lease and the personnel related to the equipment that was being discussed there.
And the 4-year lease was $2,058,000.
No, sir. The 4-year lease is, that's the purchase. The lease price is, gotta figure out what I did here. It's $794,000 per year for 4 years for the lease and the subscription. And then we have personnel as well. If you purchase the equipment outright, it's $2,058,771. And then we have to do the subscription on top of that, as well as the personnel.
I'm gonna miss some, I'm totally confused.
So are we paying the equipment in 4 payments for,
What we can do is we can purchase the equipment in 4 years.
okay, so that's what that is?
Yes.
We're
That
purchasing
is-
the equipment, basically $500,000 a year.
Well, if we're gonna if we're gonna lease it, it's $944,000 for the lease and the personnel.
That's right.
If we're going to purchase it, it's $2 million to purchase it and $594,000 reoccurring every year between subscription and personnel.
But we're dividing the purchase into 4 years.
No,
That's where-
no,
that's not-
we're writing a check for $2 million.
You're taking $2 million out of sales tax.
We don't want to put it in, we don't want to put it in column G.
So you're,
What would go in column G is $594.
That's correct.
So what I did right here was say, okay, this was what was in there, this is what's got to go in there. So now we have $349,000 savings by purchasing it outright. And then Mr. Dukes had talked about 206, so.
Plus
So
300.
not paying people out their sick
Yes.
days.
Right.
Before
So this,
We're not paying this.
there's your $556,000 now.
Well, we hadn't originally put that in.
can
Yeah, I know, 'cause
y'all
you paid.
refresh my memory because I'm missing something. Did we ever get a list of what we're doing with that money?
This is a
Did we ever hear that in
executive session.
executive session? We did.
One of the first ones a long time ago.
Yeah, and it never, I haven't heard a good explanation of it since then. 2 million and some odd dollars is,
I know the details, I just didn't know if they wanted to be shared or not.
well,
We-
can we
it
wait
includes
until executive
personnel,
session?
So it includes personnel, so in executive session, we have discussion about personnel, the addition of possible personnel, so we can talk about it there.
So Amy, remind me what to pay a teacher assistant, what number we're using? Is it 50,000?
It's about 46,000.
Let's just say 50, so you got
Now,
500.
that's 46,000 before the $3 increase.
Okay, so you got extra funding, if we didn't pay the sick leave payout, that 556, we could get 10 teaching assistants.
We got to take care of our secretary.
Yeah, I was about to say, we've also had a thing to give secretaries, a recommendation secretaries a raise too.
Okay, and we don't know what that's gonna cost.
I have to know what y'all are thinking to calculate it.
Now, when we say secretaries, we're talking about data clerk, secretaries, that whole.
Clerk, secretary, the ones that deal with all angry parents coming in the door
Right.
that nobody sees.
So that's your data.
And
I
I
was
think-
gonna say, I would think that would
Yeah.
include data
Yeah.
clerks as well.
Sure.
Data clerk.
And the,
Who else is on
I
that
think
scale?
the, technology people hadn't had much of an increase, percentage wise.
Well, 14%, you've mentioned a couple times.
Yeah, I've got
Since
it.
2000, if you,
Yeah.
because Amy gave us a list of all the COLAs since going back to the 90s. If you start where you started, it adds up to 14%. So that's what the board has approved over those years from 2012, 2013.
Well, no, what
So-
we've done, we've gone back selectively, well, these people are hollering the most, so we're giving them a raise. These people are hollering the most, so we're giving them a raise. We've not done it across the board.
Yeah, so if a group has only gotten 14% since 2012 or 13, that means they haven't had anything. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's just the
exactly.
COLAs. You
Right,
add the
that's all
COLAs,
they've
that's
had,
what it
correct.
is.
That's correct.
Their scale has not been adjusted.
Correct.
It's just the cost of living
And they
that
deal
the
with a
board
lot.
is given.
Yeah.
And I know I said this in the board meeting, that we are really treading on thin ice, just cherry picking who we're giving raises to and not, without doing a study on salaries. And I know we can't do that, we need to hire somebody to do that, because, I mean,
We can't give raises on feelings.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
every time somebody screams, I need a raise, okay, we'll give y'all a raise, and then we forget about the other person, I mean,
And I think some of it's come from having to get people in those positions, just what it's taking to hire them too. And it's kinda like Wes.
I mentioned to Dr. Kelly and Miss Elrod, I was in a meeting on Friday in Columbia with one of my counterparts who was in the midst of a salary study. You know, I was just like, hey, how's your budget going? And he was like, we're doing a salary study. I was like, oh, really? Well, what are you finding? You know, are you behind in scales? Are you paying too much? You know, what is your district finding? This is interesting to me. And he told me the company, I don't remember who, and he said it's the same one that another school district in the lower part of the state used the previous year. So I do think it's a hot topic, but he did tell me that his district was raising millage 20 mills to cover a portion of the salary study.
Well, I spoke with the superintendents and we all got together Thursday to really talk about budget. You know, what are you proposing? What is your board thinking? How do we want to do this? And every other district, it's kind of like what you were talking about, Ms. Zug, or Mr. Zug. Every other district, they do something for the teachers, usually like we're doing 1,500, 2,000 plus their step, and then everybody else is just a 2% or a 3%. Everybody across the board, every other district, that's what they're doing. So that everybody, other than the teachers, is 2% or 3%. That's how they're doing it.
Help me a minute with this. You're telling me that retired teachers, if they had 90 days, that you're gonna pay them the 90 days?
No, ma'am. What if they, so I am a classroom teacher and I've been here for 18 years. And so I've been very healthy and lucky and I haven't had to use my sick leave. So I get 12 a year and our board policy says that you can only accumulate 90. And then anything above that, just, you lose it. And so what I'm saying is if, when I start the beginning of July 1, the fiscal year, I get 12 days. So I had 90 and I'm gonna get 12 more. So I start with 102 days. And my children are sick, I have to take 2 days of sick leave, so I have 100, but other than that, I've been there every day. Well, come at the end of the school year, I just lose those 10 days and I go back to 90, because our policy says you can never have more than 90.
So you're not paying these retired teachers nothing that they have, or nothing?
No, ma'am, but this would be paying everybody that you, if you have more than 90, you would get paid out at the end of the year for whatever days you have more than 90.
And this is the first time you've done this?
Since I've been here, I think it was
Yeah,
done
'cause
prior to
It's been
me.
done before.
Yeah,
Well, you didn't do it in '09.
We haven't done it since '06, I can guarantee you that. But I do think it was done many, many moons ago.
Is there a need for that? Is that something we could save? And we hold that thought right there that I just said. What about substitutes when you're doing, what's the name of the substitute thing that you
ESS.
use?
ESS.
Okay, why are you using that? Because years ago you didn't use that. Don't you pay them something?
We do pay them a portion, a contractual fee to do that, but what we did was now it's not on the principals or an assistant principal, and at one time we had district office employees designated that came in and called subs.
Well, we could change that and let them come back and do that.
Pleasure of the board, whatever you guys would like.
Those guys would be 90 years
At
old.
least.
They were.
Mr. Leon,
Yeah.
Mr. Vickers.
I will
That
say,
would,
going back to the sick leave pay, we are the only Anderson district that doesn't do that. Anderson 1, 2, 3, and 4 pay their folks, and there's a range. The highest is 65, the lowest I think was 20, maybe?
Yes, 20.
So we are the only district that does not do that.
So in Ms. Hurd's example, she would have, at the end of the year, she's got 100 days versus 90, and she's gonna lose that 10, so we multiply by 65, she'd get a check for $650.
Yes. Still have FICA, still have withholdings
stuff.
and all the typical payroll stuff that comes out. That's what it would
And
be.
how did we get to 65?
It was just the range, when I was doing the study of all the other districts, they range from 20 to 65.
And so that's what your
Figure represent.
represents that.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're asking us to approve of that, them getting these days.
Paid out.
We're presenting this to the board for them to decide what they would like to do.
That's correct.
This is just a recommendation, but again, we've never done it before, so.
Never done it
The
before.
pleasure of the board.
Well, and the philosophy of, if I think I'm gonna get a check, like Ms. Hurd, instead of taking those sick days, if I don't have to, I'm gonna get a $650 check as opposed to taking a day off here or there and not get anything, she might come to work. But likewise, we're incentivizing those teachers who built that up. It takes at least 8 years to get to make 90 days. I mean, they had 12 days a year. So those are good employees that are coming to work. That's an incentive for them to continue to do, so reward for them to do that, so.
You got somebody retiring this year?
No, it's not for just retirees. This is for every teacher. This is for every teacher every year. It's not for retirees.
Oh, okay.
So if you were to retire, you could have all 90 paid out?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, so that's another fun story. Depending on when you were hired, if you were hired prior to, okay, Ms. Elrod, if I'm wrong, you correct me. If you were hired prior to July 1 of 13, I believe that's the date, then you can use 90 sick days when you retire to go toward 90 days of credit on your retirement. We never pay sick leave ever. So you're not getting a check, it's just credit on your years of service. So if I retired with 28 years of service and I had 90 days, it would be 28 years and 90 days for them to do the calculation. Now, if you are hired after July 1, that ruling has gone away and you cannot roll that into your retirement. That's where the magic number of 90 came for the board policy. Our board policy just says that you cannot accumulate more than 90 days. Some districts let you accumulate as much as you want, so 200 days in case you were to need it. Some do. One of our local folks do 120, some people do 150. That was an arbitrary number, but I feel sure it came from the PIBA regulation with retirement of the 90 days. But that's not even allowed for any new hires now.
And I had a friend that just retired from PIVA, and he told me when I went to see him, if you cash days in, your sick days, and get that for your retirement check, it works out to about 65 cents a day for every day. So $65 a day is tremendous compared to 65 cents a day in your retirement check.
And the payout is considered an incentive. It is not part of your salary. So it would not go towards your retirement. Just want to make sure that everybody was clear.
So
And this
the
came
six-
up this year. Who brought this up?
I brought it up initially.
Oh,
So the
Dr. Kelly put the
65,
number in there.
so the $65
I didn't have a number in there.
is negotiable.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we can move that up or down.
Yes, sir.
$65.
Absolutely.
well, we can
It
throw
was
it out.
0,
Or you
so,
can throw it out.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I've got calculations, we can throw in another thing, here's everybody, I've got names hidden, so y'all can't see who they are, but,
Right.
yeah, so that's how I come up with numbers.
And it's one of those things, and once you start it, it's like the bonus at the beginning of the year. People expect it, but if times get tough, it's gonna be the first thing to be cut, I guarantee you.
Yeah, and it should be.
Yeah, it should be.
I mean,
Should be, 'cause it's a
that's where we
bonus.
should start.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And that's probably why it stopped many, many years ago.
Yep.
It's probably had a budget crisis
was.
at some point, and that was an easy one, that was just an extra payout, and it was lost at that time.
That was Dr. Woodward's time, yes.
Okay.
It's been
Well,
number-
good. We could give that to the janitors or the,
So
Yes, we could.
that's
Yes, we
all
could.
that we have for right now, and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Yeah, next meeting, we have to vote on it.
We have a special call meeting, don't we?
Tonight.
Right,
After
tonight.
this, we can
Vote on
make
it.
decisions to
Yeah.
say what we want to do, yeah,
so we can make a decision tonight.
yes.
So we have to vote on it tonight.
Miss Earl, would it be too much trouble to print that out and get it to us?
Tonight,
Yes.
the one we just did?
Is that possible?
Yeah.
Or just leave it up there?
Oh, I can leave it up, but
Or
I
put
can
it up.
print it. The only thing that I have it printed so I can go and make copies. The only thing that mine won't do is have this over here, the stuff that I added. But I've got
That's
this one
fine.
printed.
Well, I wanted the one with the assistant.
You want this one?
Yes,
I bet that I can send it to Miss Elrod, and Miss Elrod can print it on her printer here.
do that, baby, for me, okay? Thank you.
I would like to consider the salary, study before we do more of that cherry picking.
So you want to take off the assistant pay increase and any of the pay increases that are there?
Thank you.
We ain't taking that off. I don't
So
want to.
with the salary study, it wouldn't be included, it's too
You
Too
could
late to do
It
it.
takes a while to do that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, a salary study's
6
probably
months
gonna
to a
be
year.
$80,000 to $100,000, just trying to be, I mean, that's.
Well, for
that's-
somebody to even do it.
Yes,
That's
I mean,
correct.
you're gonna have to contract it out, you're gonna have to bid it out and contract it. I'm thinking that we did it in 2000, I know we did it in
I remember the
2004 or
day.
5. It started getting implemented in 2006 when I came, so that's why I know. I think it was actually commissioned in 2004, and the results came in 2005, and we started in phases in 2006, 2007, 2008, when we phased it all the way in. I think it was about 60,000 then, so I just don't want anybody to be in sticker shock.
Now, we have had a salary study since that time, and we chose not to act on it.
Did we hire a outside company to do it?
We did, we hired an outside company, I think they charged us around $50,000 back then. But, you know, you would think in a salary study, you would find someone that was above range, right? So my question was always, well, who did we cut? And we cut nobody. Salary studies,
Probably.
95% of the time don't cut salaries, they increase them. So, you know, don't expect to find places
Pot of
where we're
money.
paying
Oh,
too
yeah.
much.
It's gonna
Well,
cost
after-
money.
after your conversation with some of the other districts that's had a salary study and them having to increase their millage 22%, I think we might want to skip the salary
I
study.
think you look at our positions are filled, so we're paying enough. I mean, in cost of living, I think we're adapting to them. I mean, we've had to adapt some because we had no bus drivers. I mean, it's only to get them.
And we're losing people to neighboring districts because we're paying them paying less, and they can go over there and make a whole lot more. And
But
so,
we have found, Mr. K, that that's not always the case.
not always, no.
I mean,
But it
we
is-
try to do our homework on, to make sure that we're in the range of folks, and sometimes we're the highest paid and we're still losing folks.
And I tend to agree that y'all are doing your homework. I mean, even with these assistants, you went out and surveyed 20 other schools to see if we were
Yeah.
in line. And yes, we found out we're in the top, the second highest paid. So I commend you for that we're just not just throwing out a number and said, okay,
Right.
we're gonna give them this
Right.
raise. So
Well, a place to start would be, if a group, if you look at their salary schedules from 2000 and say 12 or 13, and to now, if it's 14%, it's just been cost of living the whole time. But if others are higher, so let's find those and try to incrementally move those up.
I've got that out of course.
okay.
Y'all know who they
So I'll
are.
go get, I'll make
There's
copies of
only
that
a
and so Rod's making
20-something
copies.
salary schedules
Thank you,
in this
Ms. Hurd.
district.
Yeah, I just don't think I've ever seen.
I just think that $3 jump on the assistants is a little steep.
Yeah, because of the Why we doing what?
What is this right here? The fifth?
Consent agenda, that's what we were proposed to put in the consent agenda for the board meeting on the 13th.
Do we need to do anything with this one?
I don't think we have any issues with number 5,
I'd just
the
like
items
to,
in the consent agenda.
I'd like to see if we could pull out student absences and not include it on the consent agenda, because I'm getting a lot of pushback about that policy, from parents concerned we went from 10 to 5.
I had a couple of questions today about it as well, Bill.
JH student absences,
Right.
second reading.
Put it back in action items.
We'll pull that out and I'll make that adjustment to the agenda.
I had several questions. It kind of caught me off guard.
If, y'all were getting questions, had a few as well. People must be watching our recordings. It's like, I just don't
Well,
recall a lot of
everything's on-
controversy. That's a good thing. That's
Everything is
good.
on Facebook, so
That's good.
that's why they see it.
Because usually policies don't get a lot of play.
So you're gonna put policy JH, for students absences where on the next agenda?
Yes, ma'am, I'll just put it under action items and I'll take it out of the consent agenda.
Can we get your opinions on policy JH or just an explanation of it?
We can, yes, you can. So what we did is, I'm gonna ask Mr. Galloway if he'll come to the podium, because he's done a lot of work with Anderson County trying to help with our chronic absenteeism. As we talked about, Anderson 5's chronic absenteeism rate is 26%. The state is 22.5. So we're higher than the state with children who are absent and unlawfully absent. And if you look in the policy, there's the definitions of unlawfully. If you look at the front page, right before the subtitle excuses, it says an unlawful absent is when he or she is willfully absent from school without the knowledge of their parent or legal guardian, or they're absent without acceptable cause with the knowledge of their parent and legal guardian. So we have a lot of children, higher than what the rate is, that are not coming to school. And so we started looking at this year, how can we help? How can we incentivize? How can we assist? And so we've done several things. We've looked at the rates, the unexcused absences every month in the schools, anything high. The schools have been calling, talking with the families. Any unexcused absence, 15 or more, the parents have to come talk with Mr. Galloway, just so that we can show we're serious about being in school. And so this policy is really a stance on being proactive rather than reactive. Because by law, as Ms. Burris and I were talking about, if you look at underneath the word purpose, it's the second paragraph. It says, in order to receive one Carnegie unit, which is high school, of credit, a student must attend at least 85 days for a 90-day semester course. So in high school, they're on 4 blocks. So they can only miss 5 days and get credit for that course, okay? If it's a full course, which is a 180-day course, they can miss 10 days. And so by us changing it from 10 days to 5, we were trying to be more proactive. So instead of waiting, oh, you have 10 days, you don't get credit for the course. Now you've got to come to Saturday school. You got to make up FAs. We were trying to be more proactive and changing it to 5, so it starts getting on our minds faster. They're looking at it, but now that it's 5, now we're being proactive with the parents. But that is why the change was made. And I know you've also been in communication with Anderson County and talking about other districts and what they're doing as well. So if you want to expand on
Yeah,
that.
so we've had really with the biggest, the policy JH, which talks about the parent notes. We've had parents across the district, not just in District 5, but across the county, who have been utilizing the parent note policy, or not necessarily utilizing, but taking advantage of it. For instance, there's a school, there's a parent at a school not in our district, parent brought in like 23 parent notes. And that's unfortunate because they try to utilize that as a way to make an excuse absence. So this allows us to be on the same page with all, because what ends up happening, once we've done all we can do, we refer them to the County Board of Education, and at least they're singing from the same sheet of music. So the biggest policy change, the biggest change in policy JH is more so that maximum 5 days, in which with the 5 days for the parent notes, but the principal still has that opportunity to excuse for extenuating circumstances.
I like the 5, and I'm gonna tell you why I like the 5. I'm gonna go back to when I was a little girl. It was a lady that would walk the area of our school community, and she would catch you and put you in her car and take you to school. Do you remember Romy Abrams?
Abrams, no ma'am.
He did the same. He was a person like that. I don't know if the district hired him. Yeah, he was hired because he was at South Fan at one time. Yeah, Abrams. Okay, Romy Abrams. He did something with absences from school. And I do know that these children will tell mama, you better write that excuse that I wasn't there. And I'm not going to school today because I got 10 days I can miss. And I'm gonna miss some of them now. Just like we was talking about a incentive for the teacher, the incentive for these children, 5 days.
We don't have Mr. Abrams, but we do have parents who reach out to our office to let us know that there's kids in their neighborhoods who are not going to school. So they're still notifying. And unfortunately, chronic absenteeism has really grown within the last couple of years. And we're, again, as Dr. Kelly mentioned, we're trying to be proactive, even with our Stronger Connections grant. I don't know if you drive around Anderson 5, you can see billboards that's just reminding parents to bring their kids to school. Mm-hmm. So with us moving to the 5 days, it allows us to identify these kids rather quickly. It just goes in, it goes along with everything that we're trying to do. I call parents, and some of the conversations are good, and some of them are very nonchalant. And it's unfortunate that we need our kids in school because they're in a safe place. But sometimes we have situations where we have kids come to school, and the people that they interact, the staff here at Anderson School District 5, are their biggest advocates.
This seems to me as the administration has thought this out very well. They're making a recommendation to improve on attendance, and I will support the administration's recommendation on this.
I'm very torn up about it simply because I know you're trying to strengthen things, but the law doesn't allow it in the state school board regulation. Clearly, and I bet this was written before block scheduling because it says the district board of trustees or its designated principal shall promptly approve or disapprove any student absence in excess of 10 days. That's the law, and then the law is translated into regulation 43-274 that's at the bottom, which says the same thing. So I don't know legally that we can do it because we wouldn't be in compliance with the law, but I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to get kids, you're trying to get communicated, and the 5 days goes right back to the block scheduling because they have half as much time. 5 days, half of 10, they have half as much time to get that. So
What does it say
If-
the consequence of 10 days is?
There's no consequence. This is just,
That's
the
the
board sets the 596590 as rules and regulations, and then that's translated, it requires the school boards the school board, Sacramento School Board to come up with a regulation, and they just planted it right in the regulation.
Well, we're not changing the law, we're changing the maximum allowance of parent votes.
But it's making, after 5, it becomes an automatic unexcused, right?
No, it's up to the principal of the school will approve or disapprove
Right, we
each
can't do that
succeeding.
until 10. So it's kind of.
It's 5 here.
Not in the law. In the law, it says they can do that after 10, in excess of 10. So if it's after 5,
It
it
says
becomes.
they, read it, if you don't mind.
After 5 days, excused days will be counted as unexcused. Any parent notes after 5 days, excused will be counted as unexcused. So that's flipping it automatically. It's making a judgment, is it not?
No, I don't think it is. I want to know this. When a child is out of school, the next day he comes back, or when I check attendance, and then it goes to the office and that girl checks his attendance, usually it's a young lady. What do they do about it? Do they call the parent and say, your child is not at school today, do you have an excuse for him, or will he bring one tomorrow?
Well, I just want to go back just a second. So we have a variety of ways to excuse absences. One, you can have medical excuse, and then you have parent notes as well. So this just, again, limits the amount of parent notes, because we have folks who are really taking advantage of the system with the parent note piece. Especially when, if you read on down, we even put in there where one note can cover a student who is absent for 2 or more consecutive days, but separate notes are required for absences that are not back-to-back. At times, we have parents who try to turn in a note for, a kid may have been out for January, February, March, and they want to turn in one particular parent note to cover it all. So we're trying to reach out to them quickly, but the main thing is that we're looking at the parent note piece. It's not necessarily, we want to excuse those medical absences or the bereavement, things of that particular type of nature. So, unless I'm missing something, then I can go back to my research, and I don't mind reaching out to Allison.
And I would assume those with the most absences usually have the worst test scores.
I'm sorry, say one more
Worst
time.
test scores and bad grades, things like that, go hand in hand.
That means
Well, his
they're not
stomach
here,
hurt.
you can't teach them. so
His
that's-
stomach hurt this morning. I don't want to go to school, but I see him down there at the corner store all day.
But it's very easy to turn, and again, some parent notes are legitimate. Like, my daughter has a headache, well, she doesn't necessarily need to go to the doctor, I can sign on the parent note, but we have folks who are really taking advantage of that parent note piece, and it's not necessarily right.
Mr. Galloway.
Yes, sir.
Once a child reaches the point of referral to the county board, what are the repercussions? What happens?
So before they get there, we classify them, and this is in here, we classify them as truant. I'm sorry, let me make sure, truant. And then we moved on to, once they're classified as truant, we put them on an intervention plan, attendance intervention plan. If they violate that, then we refer them. So a variety of things can happen. One day we'll meet with Casey Orflin, who is at our County Board of Education, come up with some strategies, and basically send them back to our schools. We haven't had a situation, we've had a couple of situations, not a lot, who have been referred to DJJ. But as you all know, DJJ has a lot of things they are concerned about. Not to say that absences are not something they should not be concerned about, but they're, sometimes it's sort of pushed down on the list. So, and not to take anything away from them, and I think our county board is working extremely hard, not only with Anderson School District 5, but for other districts as well. So again, it's really a series of meetings, and if it gets to the judge, and no disrespect to our judiciary portion of our county, but if they come in there with a story or whatnot, they could just be pushed back to the school. So, we're trying, and again, that's why Dr. Kelly has really reached out to ensure that, like, we're making phone calls, we're, trying to do as much as possibly can from the school level, because even though they are being referred, we are still trying to reach out to our students.
Okay.
And
So
build
now-
it, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And,
didn't
going
mean to
back
cut
to
you
build a
off.
relationship with parents, we have some legitimate reasons, we do,
Right.
but a lot of them are not legitimate.
Okay.
And
So, what are the guidelines for turning in a parent note? Is there a deadline?
Yes, and this is a minor change. They have to turn it in within a certain amount of days from being out. And in one change we put in there, we made it electronic because a lot of our schools just have the preference of just going to their website and doing the electronic piece. So even if they don't turn it in with a certain amount of days, those attendance clerks at the school, the assistant principals, the principals are reaching out and trying to get. So the schools are really working extremely hard to get our kids those notes so they can have those excused absences. If you look at this high school piece, if you don't have those, then you look at FAs and things of that nature too, which is a totally different topic.
So the reason I'm asking, we say we have parents that are taking advantage of the parent note system, or for whatever reason exacerbating the use of it. So now, if we have a parent that has not turned in a note in a timely fashion, 3 days, I would say 3 days should be sufficient. If you haven't turned in a note 3 days after your absence, then it's too late to try to turn in a note at the end of a month when we tell you that you're true. Oh, I want to turn in an excuse for January and February, those days. No, it's too late. So do we have those guidelines in there? Because you said some parents will try to turn in a note, a month late. So what do we do in an instance like that? Do we just accept them, or do we say, I'm sorry, but the deadline is so many days?
I think it's a case-to-case basis, because again, we may have a parent out there that really has maybe they were in the hospital, something happened, and maybe life, hasn't caught up with them or whatnot. So I think
somebody had to watch that child if that parent's in the hospital. Somebody had to be responsible for that child, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the responsible party, it's their duty. Because we shouldn't be in the business of raising children.
That's right.
But we are.
We are, that's right.
But the problem is, we can only do what we can do if your child comes to school.
That's right.
If your child doesn't come to school, then that's neglect on your part. I know at one point, when I was in school, we had a truant law.
Yes, sir.
Truancy law. And if you didn't go to school, sooner or later you ended up at the magistrate's office or wherever if you didn't go to school. I didn't have that problem. My parents made sure I was at school.
That's right.
And if I wasn't at school, if I caught myself going to cut, I got a whipping.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay?
A beat.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Well, but going back we try to have them within 3 days, just to go back to.
3 days,
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
But again, our schools are still working with parents, At the end of the day, we want the kids at school.
Right.
And give them the support they need because, again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them are safer being with us than they are at home. Some of them are not, or I'm not going to say a lot of them are.
As opposed to changing the time frame, can we not just apply more oomph to the law that we have? Because that's the problem. People are taking advantage of the policy that we already have. So cutting the days is not going to benefit anybody. It's going to put more people, yes, it's going to give us a chance to see them ahead of time, but that's not going to make them come to school.
Well, I don't know. I feel like limiting the amount of parent notes would be beneficial to that.
Well, see, our policy, we're talking about, it says student absences, but I guess the policy says parent note.
The revised.
Verbatim.
The revised,
Okay. I don't think they took parent notes when I was in school. You had to be the doctor or you were absent. I thought.
They had belts since then.
Thank you, Price, yeah.
Board of Education.
Yeah. They had something, that you gonna get to school.
Thank you, Mr. Gall, for answering my question.
I definitely want to, I know that we've identified absenteeism as being a contributing factor to lower test scores and things of that nature, and I definitely want to get those to help that need the help.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to cast this wide net that, because I don't have the numbers to say, well, how many people is this going to affect? Because the parents I'm hearing from are upset, and maybe they don't properly understand it. I do think that, some of it's captured by saying, well, the principal still has the discretion to excuse it. And I've communicated that, and they said, well, is there going to be consistency from school to school with that. So I think there are concerns, you know, about, is this going to hit maybe some folks unduly that it shouldn't hit? You know, families that, or people that aren't necessarily, you know, chronically truant or
Yes,
anything
sir.
like that, but want to capture people, so to speak, that aren't
Yes, sir. Well,
a problem.
I don't know. I trust the principals to, you know, to really investigate, and I really do. But some folks, I've had a conversation with parents who wanted to take their child to Disney World before spring break. I mean, couldn't wait a day or a week later during spring break, but they want to do a week earlier, and that's not an excuse. And those are some hard conversations. Then again, sometimes we even deal with parents who go and forge a doctor's note, and some of our schools have to go and do research and find out that it's not a legitimate excuse. So, you know, that's not all the cases, but at the end of the day, we want our kids in school. We really do, and I feel like this would be an opportunity to catch those kids who are not so interested in being there. I didn't mean to cut you off for your sense of that, Mr. Thompson. Okay.
I understand, I heard what Mr. Thompson was saying, and then after you said about going on vacation. But if my child is going to school and not being absent and not have a medical problem, why would I call you about that? Why am I upset about this? Because my child is going to school.
Right, well, I think that there's been talk about, what if my kids got their wisdom teeth out and they're out for 3 or 4 days? And then we do take some trip that we're out a day or two or whatever, and I'm not saying that any of that's appropriate, or I'm not excusing things that aren't excused. I'm just saying there's concern that it's going to cast a wide net, so to speak, and, you know, involve people in and I'm not saying it is, involve people in a truancy issue that they didn't have. I mean, I had a grandparent call me and said, when I was going to school, we had 30 days that we could miss. So I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just concerned about, you know, putting people in jeopardy with truancy that have not dealt with that. And I'm also concerned about not quite understanding what this is doing. Maybe if there was some sort of a cheat sheet, so to speak, to say, this is what's allowed. We're talking about parent notes. And I know we're dealing with policy. That's not a cheat sheet, so to speak. But I'm getting a lot of questions and concerns, so that's just what I'm doing here, is vocalizing.
I think the biggest problem is
Yeah,
you're
that's
cutting out
good.
their big Disney trips, I'm being honest.
Yep. And again, medical notes are medical notes. I mean, we can't fight against that. We really can't. We'll continue to do that. But just going back to our principals and our leadership, you know, I feel like they work extremely hard to form relationships with the parents, and they understand that everybody has a different situation. They know which ones are taken advantage of, but they also know the ones who have having a legitimate reason as to why their child is not here. Anything else?
Yeah, I think I understood when you were saying that about the principal,
Yes, ma'am.
because the principal knew me when my boys was at school. They knew exactly who I was. And so I feel as though that you could leave it up to principal, even for those 5 days, as you say, cheat sheet, you know, and you could have that. But I think what you people were trying to do when you made this other thing up, that you were trying to get these children back in school that had so many days, 10, probably 15, when it came, sometimes 20, I'm sure. But I understand what you're saying, I understand why you made the policy.
Why not do this, make it 7 instead of 5? 7 days instead of 5.
5 kind of goes along with the block scheduling, and
Okay.
because it's 85 out of 90 days. I'll summarize kind of where I started, because I think this is a good thing. I mean, I think strengthening attendance and trying to send that message to parents is a good thing. In second reading, for me, I will vote for, well, I'm not supposed to say that in executive session, but I will be in favor of it. But I would like for Allison to kind of weigh in on it. If we have to revisit, let's do that.
Well,
Just
why-
because of the way this is written, because of the law, says 10 days, and that's when that kicks in, but I'm sure that goes back to before block scheduling, when we had semester classes, 90-day classes, as opposed to 180-day classes. So,
We'll check with it.
yeah.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
So we can pass it on first reading and
It's on.
check between,
It's on second
Yeah,
reading
it's
now.
on second, so we're good.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hold that up.
I'll take care of that. Yes, sir.
Just one question for clarification. I know when my girls were in school and they missed a day, we got a robocall.
Yeah.
It wasn't a person. It was just, hey, your kid was out today. Bye. Is that what we're doing now?
From my understanding, Power School still works that way. Yes, sir.
So that's initial, but then if it's, as we're talking
Oh,
about,
yeah.
repetitive,
This is
then you
additional
get
stuff.
the,
That's right.
yes.
So when does it
I've heard my
change?
wife talk about calling them personally.
Okay. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
yeah, because, I mean, I'm not saying it goes in one ear and out the other, but it's just not personal. It's just a recording, says your kid missed school today. And I'm like, do what?
It's funny you say that though, Mrs. Hood, because sometimes I'll call parents and they won't say anything because they're thinking that it's the robocall.
Yeah.
So I understand clearly what you're saying. So I will do my homework, not just my homework, but I'll reach out to Allison and get back with you all, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. Just one final point on that. I don't think we ought to try to entertain these parents that are afraid to raise their children. So if you're scared of your child, and I hope this will be recorded, if you're afraid of your child, then do better. Let me just say it that way. Because you got to be a parent. God put you in a parental position. He allowed you to birth and nurture that child, and you are charged with the duty of training up a child in the way that he or she should go. And that includes all of this. So this stuff about, I heard Mrs. Lever say something about, you gonna sign that note, I'm not going to school, that kind of stuff. These type parents are not being parents. If you're afraid of your child, then there's help out there. There's counseling, and there are other agencies we can get you in touch with the right people. But this stuff about being afraid of your child, my daughter still call me yes sir, no sir, and yes daddy, no. And if I say something, that's the end of it. And that's the way your children ought to be.
Amen.
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 I didn't have to worry about that.
Moving on.
I'll be getting
Okay.
calls about that later.
We're gonna go into executive session. Is there any discussion?
We need to read.
We have to read why we're going.
Why are we going? Okay, well, I was gonna do that in a minute, okay. Section 3470A1, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, and release of employee regulated by a public body, district administrative salaries. Section 3470A2, discussion of proposed purchases of sale of property.
Make a motion, to go into executive session.
I'll second it.
It's been properly second, and we count whoever don't want to go.
All in favor?
Not in this one.
We don't vote.
Oh, yeah, we have to
Vote
vote.
to go
That's
in
the only
executive
thing you
session.
can vote.
Okay. So it's approved that we'll go in, executive session.
Ms. Hurd, did those printouts?
Kyle, what are you gonna do about them fish?
Fish.
Buzzards gotta eat. What all are they doing? Okay, I mean, you still
I
have
can
the
read.
lake there when you done. Just gonna refill, I know over the years they've had to dig it out 2 or 3 times.